There is a lot going on, including there is a big splinter now, and we've been really all watching this in real time, where you have this war now going on with Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massie, Rand Paul, and Donald Trump. And it seems like you've got, of course, traditional MAGA, and then you've got America First. These are, America First seems to be a splintering, if you will, of MAGA. And so if you've been paying attention and on YouTube, if you're watching us on YouTube this morning, we actually have a Daily Dan poll this morning. Are you team Trump and MAGA traditionally, or are you now team Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massie, Rand Paul, where it is America First? Because there is a split that is now happening within the MAGA movement. And most people, when we put up this poll at 5 o'clock, they were team Trump. You've got Marjorie Taylor Greene, again, literally everywhere this weekend going after Donald Trump. And she actually apologized. Seemingly for her behavior, if you will, over the last several years. We're going to get into all of that. But so far, what are people saying on the Daily Dan poll? How did we frame the question, and what are people saying?
Simply put, Team DJT or MTG. And 74% of poll takers would say Team DJT.
All right, so clearly the audience is not, folks listening to Nashville's Morning News, not really splintered. I mean, a lot of people still very much team Donald Trump. I get it. I still consider here's my problem, is that I'm on team both. You know what I mean? Like, I am pro-Israel. Well, let's go through this very quickly, the two sides, right? If you are America First, you are not all in on Israel. You want the Epstein files released. You do not want 600,000 Chinese students, and you feel like there's no need to import talent. So that is if you are America First. Now, if you're Donald Trump and MAGA, you remain pro-Israel. The messaging has been somewhat mixed on Epstein, although this morning, over the weekend, Donald Trump posted, "Release the darn Epstein files. Please get it over with and let's move on." And by the way, he has said that many times. He's also, of course, Donald Trump famously last week, yes to 600,000 Chinese students being imported into our country. Terrible, terrible take. And also, the president feels like America needs to import talent coming in from other countries. So there is a clear, a clear difference between those two sides. And so I think that there is a very serious splintering. And by the way, if you've only got what's the number for Marjorie Taylor Greene on our Daily Dan poll?
24%.
So 24% of listeners to WTN are pro Marjorie Taylor Greene. I would say that a year ago, there's no way that would have happened. So I'm just telling you that there have been people that are gravitating away from President Trump and ultimately siding with Marjorie Taylor Greene. So, and this whole release of the Epstein files, I believe that Donald Trump wants the Epstein files released. I think that he does want to get it over with. He wants to focus on the economy. This is what Donald Trump said over the weekend.
Fake news like you're a terrible reporter. And fake news like you, they just keep bringing that up to deflect from the tremendous success of the Trump administration. So a guy like Massie, his poll numbers are showing he's at 6% approval rating right now. And we call him Rand Paul Jr. because he never votes for the Republican Party. So they're using Jeffrey Epstein as a deflection from the tremendous success that we're having as a party.
I mean, listen, we are in the midst of a lot of successful narratives. The president has had a lot of positives, a lot of wins over the last. He's not even been in office a year yet, folks. So the president posting this over the weekend, I believe this was on Sunday. As I said on Friday night aboard Air Force One to the fake news media, House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files, and that is going to happen tomorrow, it would appear, because we have nothing to hide, the president says, and it is time to move on from this Democrat hoax perpetrated by the radical left lunatics in order to deflect from the great success of the Republican Party, including our recent victory on the Democrat shutdown. President Trump continuing to say the Department of Justice has already turned over tens of thousands of pages to the public on Epstein and are now, and this was news over the weekend, now looking at various Democrat operatives like Bill Clinton and Reid Hoffman and Larry Summers, et cetera, and their relationship to Epstein. And the House Oversight Committee can have whatever they are entitled to. President Trump ending that social media post with all capital letters, "I don't care." And I think that's a great narrative. I think that is something really good, positive for the president to say, because here's the deal. He does have a lot of good things to talk about. In that lengthy Truth Social post, the president did emphasize his wins and what is next. He says, all I do care about is that Republicans get back on point, which is the economy, affordability, where he says we are winning big. Our victory on reducing inflation from the highest level in history to practically nothing, bringing down prices for the American people, delivering historic tax cuts, gaining trillions of dollars of investment into America, a record, the rebuilding of our military, securing our border, deporting criminal illegal aliens, ending men in women's sports, stopping transgender for everyone, and so much more. That's what the president said on Truth Social. He says nobody cared about Jeffrey Epstein when he was alive. If the Democrats had anything, they would have released it before our landslide election victory. Some members, he says, in air quotes, of the Republican Party are being used, and we can't let that happen. Let's start talking about the Republican Party's record-setting achievements and not fall into the Epstein trap, which is actually a curse on the Democrats, not us. Make America great again. And listen, I love that message. I love that message from Donald Trump because he has done a lot of good things. And I do admit there is some work that needs to be done, but focus on affordability. So the president has said before about releasing the Epstein files, just release them already. I mean, to me, this is a no-brainer. And every time they try to get him with a new batch, the Democrats with a new batch, it ends up being positive for Donald Trump. Again, those released emails last week proved several things. Remember, it was Epstein emailing a New York Times reporter about how he wanted to team up with them to try and take down President Trump. All right, so it proves that even the New York Times and Jeffrey Epstein could not come up with any evidence that Donald Trump did anything untoward with these young girls. As I said in the 5 o'clock hour, and I've probably said it before, there's more evidence that Donald Trump did nothing wrong than evidence that Donald Trump did anything wrong. Epstein also said that Donald Trump was in a room with a bunch of bikini-clad girls, and he had the photos to prove it. It's Florida. Get over it. They also had a redacted victim's name, and that victim was Virginia Giuffre. So why did they redact her name when they said that Donald Trump was said to be in a room with this victim, Virginia Giuffre? Well, the reason the Democrats redacted it is because they know that Virginia Giuffre has said that Donald Trump did do nothing wrong, that Trump didn't do anything wrong. That's why they had actually redacted that name. So every time the Democrats try to get something on Donald Trump related to Epstein, it does just blow up in their face. By the way, did you see this over the weekend? This is another reminder. Over the weekend, this blew up. That Jeffrey Epstein was texting with a Democrat in Congress just before she was going to question Michael Cohen. Remember all that? The Donald Trump fixer who turned a dime on Donald Trump, dropped the dime on the president, turned against him, and said all kinds of things about the president. So apparently Jeffrey Epstein was texting this Democrat in Congress a bunch of questions. So Cohen is getting ready to testify in front of Congress. And this congresswoman, her name is Stacey Plaskett. She's out of the U.S. Virgin Islands. She's known as a non-voting delegate. But they found the communication in this trove of 20,000 emails and documents that were put out, and they found the evidence that Epstein was texting with this Democrat, Stacey Plaskett, as she was getting ready to question Michael Cohen. And by the way, at the time of this, dude was a known sex offender. So you've got a member of Congress communicating with a known sex offender as she is getting ready to question Michael Cohen, Donald Trump's former fixer. Just, I mean, incredible. So as all of this is going on, right, Marjorie Taylor Greene over the weekend was on all the shows. Now, you heard me mention the president said that he advised her not to run for the Senate or the governorship. One of the things, because that's one of the things that President Trump has been saying, is that she's mad at me because I told her not to run for the Senate or not to run for the governorship for the state of Georgia. Dana Bash said this to Marjorie Taylor Greene.
The president said the reason that you have been critical of him is not necessarily Epstein, but because he pushed you not to run for the Senate or for governor in Georgia. How and when did he do that?
Well, that is absolutely not true. Actually, I never had a conversation at all with the president about running for Senate or running for Georgia. And those were decisions I came to on my own, that I don't want to have anything to do with the Senate. I think the past 2 months of the government shutdown should have shown America exactly why I would never want to be there. I think it's a very broken institution that serves the uniparty and doesn't serve the American people and how they vote. Mm-hmm. And I decided that I didn't want to run for governor this cycle either. I very much want to do the job that I'm in. Everyone else says I'm running for something, but all I want to do is serve Georgia's 14th district, and I'm very grateful for that opportunity.
All right, so she actually did tell the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that she was considering a run. She also told The Guardian that she was considering a run. Now, this was back months ago, but she did tell various media outlets that she was going to run for or considering a run for the Senate or the governorship. And I would find it hard to believe, and I don't know about you, friends, but I would find it hard to believe that she would not consider a run without talking to Donald Trump, because obviously she would be asking for his endorsement. So you have Trump saying that she did have a discussion with him. Heck, he even came out back then and said that he would fully endorse Marjorie Taylor Greene if she ran for the Senate. So whatever. Trump says it happened. She says it didn't.
So he said it pretty explicitly. Are you saying he's lying, or did he at least get that message to somebody on your political team instead?
I'm not sure. That is untrue what he said. I don't know if he's being fed wrong information. I honestly have no idea in that area, but it is absolutely factually not true. Nor have I called him, and White House logs would prove that. His own cell phone records would prove it. I have not been calling the president, but I did post messages that I had sent to him, and that was to, protect, get involved. This is important. The American people want the Epstein files released.
Well, that is most certainly true. The American people, I think by and large, they do want the Epstein files responsibly released. And that is the big difference between what the Republicans want to do and what the Democrats want to do. And by the way, Marjorie Taylor Greene over the weekend, and if this doesn't tell you that she's running for something, then I don't think you're paying attention. She apologized for taking part in toxic politics. We all love Scott Jennings, right?
Oh, yeah.
So he chimed in, and then coming up, I think Trump is doing the right thing where he is now pivoted, and he really is focused on the economy, getting the message out and so forth. But one of the things that happened over the weekend, of course, with all eyes on Marjorie Taylor Greene, you had Scott Jennings, and clearly he is Team Trump on this. And he pointed out, as Marjorie Taylor Greene is out there saying that, number one, her life is in danger. Donald Trump has called her a traitor. So one of the things that she is saying, or Donald Trump is saying, is Marjorie Taylor Greene has never really been the same since I told her not to run for the Senate or not to run for the governorship for the state of Georgia. And so you've got Scott Jennings. It sounds like he's got the real story, and that is that all Donald Trump did was send her some inside polling.
Technically true, based on what I've heard and what I know, that he didn't tell her not to run, but what she didn't say was that he sent her a poll privately, discreetly, and it had information in it, and it showed her down 20 points to John Ossoff.
Yep.
And so in politics, when you want to send a message to someone that you like or that has been an ally, you don't embarrass them publicly. You privately send them information and show them what the reality is. And so I think it's true that he didn't tell her not to run, but it's also true that he did her a big favor, which is to show her information that a candidacy statewide in Georgia for her would have been a disaster.
Which is why she may now be trying to moderate her image and moderate her stances, because she was, according to, and a couple of super texters pointed out, make sure you get to the story of the polling. I did. It's all part of my presentation this morning. So we'll have to see ultimately what happens. And if she's going to run for the Senate, if she's going to run, although she did say that she has no interest in running for the Senate, even though she has said a number of different times that she does want to run for the Senate. But bottom line is, we're going to continue to talk about that. Some other stories real quick, just so you know where I'm going. I've got so much this morning. The president, Venezuela, is a big topic of conversation this morning. We're going to continue to talk about that as well. We had some fun earlier in the broadcast with Fox News. They had a guy on talking about how Trump derangement syndrome is actually a syndrome. As a matter of fact, what he said was Trump derangement syndrome is the defining pathology of our time. We'll talk about that again as the morning continues to unfold. The president, though, I like what he's doing. He is pivoting away from tariffs on certain items. Waking up this morning and over the weekend, President Trump, I think it was on Friday, announcing that he was going to lift the tariffs on some products like coffee and beef and some other things as well. And I think that that is one of the things that the president is doing to pivot away from the tariffs. But one of the things that he's saying is, listen, he's not admitting defeat on the tariffs. You got some people that are trying to make it out like that. He's not admitting defeat on the tariffs. What he's saying is that we are coming close to or negotiating great deals with these various countries. And so there really is no need to have tariffs at such a high level if we're negotiating these trade deals. That was the whole point of the tariffs. So some people are saying, oh, Trump is, lost the plot on the tariffs. He's now clawing the tariffs back because he sees what it's doing to the economy. I would look at it differently. I would say, and I take the president at his word, when he says we're negotiating great deals. So we are going to lower those tariffs for those countries. Now, the president was on with Maria Bartiromo over the weekend talking about the economy.
Investing in America, $20 trillion. No country's ever done anywhere even near that, like a fraction of that. Biden did less than $1 trillion in 4 years. I did $20 trillion. We're going to do over $17 trillion in 8 months. By the time we end, we could do over $20 trillion. There's never, in China, no matter where you go, there's never been anything like it. We are building up something that's unbelievable. And a big part of that are the tariffs, because they don't want to have to pay the tariffs, because it's so unsustainable that they come and build the pharmaceuticals and the chips and all of the things. They're coming into the United States and they're building them. It's a miracle what's happening. We are building the greatest country in the world, economically, greater than we've ever been before.
So that is President Trump with Maria Bartiromo. And there is no doubt that foreign investment has improved over the last 10 months. And by the way, Trump teases more price reductions. That is one of the stories on CNN. That is good. I will say this about Trump. As bullheaded as people claim that he is, I think that Donald Trump is reading the tea leaves. I do. I think that he's reading the tea leaves, and he sees what the American people are worried about, and he's pivoting. So, yes, foreign investment is up, has improved over the last 10 months. That $20 billion, by the way, that President Trump cited, that is both actual investments thus far and pledged investments as well. We talked about this earlier, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Japan, South Korea, among other nations. And, of course, companies have pledged all of this investing in America, plants and manufacturing and so forth. That is a good thing. Now, I speak about real wages often. I haven't done it as much lately, but it looks like I should start. Because in what are real wages? Real wages, the earnings of Americans adjusted for inflation. And in America, apparently, real wages are up. Under Joe Biden, they were down a lot, but real wages are up under Donald Trump, thanks to all of that inflation. With Donald Trump, inflation has cooled. As far as when we had inflation under Joe Biden, it was horrible. So when you start talking about real wages and how is your paycheck, how is that doing under the inflationary weight of a Joe Biden versus a Donald Trump? Gas and eggs, of course, we've spoken about that, down. Don't forget that President Trump's tax cuts are going into effect next year. So Peter Doocy came out swinging over the weekend on inflation, breaking down both Donald Trump's first year and now in his second term, and where Joe Biden was at this point in his presidency on who was better on inflation. Listen closely.
You look at overall inflation for the first year of Trump versus Biden. Biden, overall inflation was up 4.3%, higher than Trump, just up 1.6%. Groceries under Biden in that time, up 3.8%. Yep. With Trump, up 1.3%. And then when it comes to gas, this is crazy. Biden up 24.4%. With Trump, it is actually down 5.4%. That is where the biggest difference is. And we heard from the HUD Secretary, Scott Turner, this afternoon. They are racing to cut red tape for construction projects because the belief among officials here is that if housing is the number one place where people are getting killed when it comes to affordability, if people are cutting red tape and able to build more houses and apartments, then the prices will come down. Pretty basic supply and demand.
I love what Peter Doocy says. And let me just reiterate those numbers because I think that those numbers are important. Cumulative change in pricing under Biden and Trump 2.0. So under Biden, you had overall inflation that first year, 4.30% up. Under Trump, just 1.60%. Groceries, 3.80%. Trump, 1.30% under groceries. And gasoline, 24.40% for Joe Biden, and under Donald Trump, down 5.40%. In other words, Trump has some good talking points. We talked about real wages and how real wages are better under Donald Trump than they were under Joe Biden. So there are things that are going on here that are really important. And remember how successful Donald Trump was at cutting red tape and deregulation. So you just heard Peter Doocy talk about how they're going to do whatever they can to try and cut that red tape when it comes to building homes and so forth. And that is important because home affordability, that is a big part of the American dream, is it not? Yes, Dan, yes, it is. So if Trump can do that same thing, if Trump can cut that red tape and do whatever he can do to get more homes built, that's what Trump wants to do. Scott Turner is President Trump's Housing and Urban Development Secretary. He talked about this over the weekend.
We have to get with local leaders, mayors, economic development, planning and zoning, and take a real inventory, to your point, of how is the regulatory environment crippling and literally shackling development and building in our said communities across America. And every community is different. So we have to take an inventory. What is the regulatory environment? How is it impacting building? And then make the healthy, hard decisions to unleash innovative building and creativity, because we have builders and developers in our country that are ready to build, that have great strategies, great plans, and capital has to be easier to obtain. Regulatory environment has to come down. And so I think a combination of those will help us to spur development of affordable housing.
So that is Scott Turner. And there are a number of conflicting issues here, of course, when it comes to like those big apartment complexes or lower income type housing. Nobody wants these in their neighborhood, right? NIMBY. Nobody wants this in their backyard. They just don't. There is plenty of space, I would think, because I've been around the country a time or two. Most major cities have like old warehouses that need to be torn down. Most major cities have areas where it is ripe for development. So that is a place to put those new apartments, that low-income housing, whatever. There's also places that are further out where you could also put these kinds of things. You tear down, again, these old warehouses, you would be amazed at the room that you can find. You have, of course, with the federal government, you want to build, and there's a lot of state issues too, state regulations. Lord, friends, look at California. But you have the environmental issues that have to be cleared. You have all kinds of things like in these left-leaning cities, the regulations, they can be incredibly burdensome. You start talking about all of the environmental issues as well. And so if they can manage and work with local regulators as well, work with local states, work with cities to find more places to build homes, I think that would clearly be a good thing. And if we learned anything from Donald Trump in that first administration, it was that, yes, he is good, very good at cutting that red tape and cutting all of that burdensome regulation. If he can do that, that would be great for the housing market, and people would be able to find more homes. As Scott Bessent has said, and also J.D. Vance, they are looking forward to finding the ability to build 5 million homes.